Hello, and welcome to the OYAP Build Day House Launch Kit. I hope that you are all doing well. My name is Diana Kakache. I am the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program resource teacher. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleagues. Katerina Maeta is the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program lead resource teacher, and Sandra Morisuti is the leader of experiential learning.
Thank you for introducing us, Miss Diana, and everybody for being with us today. We're just going to go through today's agenda before we get started to make sure we're all following along. Today, we're going to discuss a little bit about exploring careers as our main focus with a spotlight on the skilled trades. We're going to get the chance to hear from one of our local experts, which we're really excited about, Miss Nicole Ross. She's a carpenter and teacher, and we're going to do some cross curricular activities today that are rooted in experiential learning. And we're going to go through some build tips and hints, as you may know from your teachers, that later on, either today, tomorrow, or maybe in a few weeks, you're going to engage in a house framing experience. So we're super excited that you're here today and are looking forward to our time together. So we're going to start just by taking a look at sort of where you are right now and where you might be going in the next little while. So our friends today, all our students on the call today are in grade 7, 8. We may have a few sixes if you're in a split grade, but you're seniors in your school. You're getting ready to look forward to the next transition in your schooling journey. The truth is, you've probably been asked over 100 times, what do you want to be when you grow up? I know I heard that question starting at like 2 years old on repeat over and over again. And I bet many of you and those asking you those questions have rarely ever really stopped, sat down, and explored all the options that are actually available to you. For the most part, we tend to respond based on an interest or a favorite show or maybe what mom or dad does. But as you are getting up in your senior grades of elementary school, that world of career options is going to get bigger and broader. And we're hoping that today we can expose you to some new careers that maybe you didn't consider before. There are four pathways after high school, and I'm sure your teachers have already started talking about that. For students leaving the TCDSB and across Ontario, the four major training learning pathways will be university, college, apprenticeship, or straight to work. I want to really stress that every single one of these options are worthwhile and can lead you to your own version of success. When you get to high school and you start tailoring your course selection and learning, it's important to consider which pathway you will need to pursue in order to meet your career and life goals. So that's the neat thing about high school. You get to have some choice and you get to start tailoring your schedule. When you consider what career you want to pursue, we're hoping that you also consider the certification and training required by that particular industry. Some jobs require entry level employees to have a university degree. Some require a college diploma, while others require job experience and standardized training. And believe it or not, others might require a combination of one or more of these different pathways. When considering your personal future career choices, there is no need to get stressed. I know when you hear this question, sometimes maybe we might become a little bit anxious, but these decisions should be all about you. You want to stop and think about what you're good at, what you like doing, and what lifestyle maybe you want in the future. Success can be defined in a number of ways, and the most important thing is trying to find a balance in life and to find joy in all the aspects, including your career. When I work with high school students, I often remind them that they should chase their passion, find out what excites them. If you chase your passion, it's likely that you will be happy. If you're happy, you'll try harder to learn and grow at what you're doing. And if you apply yourself, you'll be good at your job and for sure you will find success. Before we start looking at specific careers, we'd like to see what you already know. So we're going to ask you to engage in a little activity. So, teachers in the classrooms, if you can find a board space, whether that's a whiteboard or a chalkboard, a chart piece of paper, or students can just keep a list at their desk on their own piece of scrap paper. Um, as I'm giving the instructions, we'll give you about 15 seconds to sort of find something or coordinate something to jot some notes on. We're going to ask you to create a list. We're going to give you about 2 minutes to form this list. And the list is going to collect a list of all the different jobs or careers that you can think of in alphabetical order. So, whether that's on the chalkboard or on your sheet of paper, we're going to ask you to write down the alphabet A through Z and see how many careers or jobs you can list that start with that alphabetical letter. So, under A, you're going to write down as many jobs or careers as you can think of, any kind of job or career at all. And so, you might want to do this as a group. It might be interesting to hear the different experiences and contexts that your students in your classroom are bringing forward, as I'm sure that someone might learn something new. So we're going to put 2 minutes on the timer and we'll be quiet so that you as a group can sort of work through that activity. Just going to give Miss Sandra a moment to bring that up on the screen, and then we'll let you know when the 2 minutes is up. Good luck. We have about 10 seconds left on the timer. So that brings us to the end of this 2 minutes, but I'm guessing my friends in the classroom might need a little bit more time. So what we're going to do is we'll put about another 30 seconds on the timer and give everybody a chance just to wrap up any final ideas and get them down on that list. Teachers, students, you want to make sure that wherever this list is being written, you want to keep it handy, as we'll come back to it in a few slides or in a few moments. So we'll give you about 30 more seconds to finish up that list. noise always gets me. I feel like it's there's a sense of urgency when I hear that buzzer. So don't worry if you didn't complete it. The idea is just to get our minds on and start thinking about the world of possibility when it comes to different careers. So we're going to come back to that list in a few moments. We'd like to show you a very brief video about all the neat things you can do with your hands. So if I can get all my friends in the classroom, teachers, just to um, listen closely for a moment, and I'll come back on in about 3 to 4 minutes.
Have you ever looked closely at your hands? Very closely, wondering what their future will be? What if their future is to push a pencil or type on a keyboard like most people? Will that be what they want? What if we were to do, together, the exercise of imagining all that they could accomplish with the right tools between their fingers? Now, close your eyes and imagine holding a hammer, a screwdriver, scissors, a rolling pin, or a wrench in your hands. Let the magic happen and see where these opportunities will take them. They could fuel your ideas, build your path, power your dreams, use your strengths, shape your future, and even nourish your taste for adventure. Thanks to your hands, you too could very well create a future at your image. Seize this opportunity to discover your future and let Oh Yeah be your helping hand.
So I hope you enjoyed that video as much as we do. I like watching this video because it reminds me to pause and really think about who I am and what I love to do, and maybe consider something that I sometimes take for granted, which are my hands. I know that as a teacher, as a mom, as a person, I love to engage with things, build and create. And sometimes I take for granted all the things my hands do. So as we move forward, I'd like you to keep that at the forefront of your mind as we talk about what do you like? What are your passions? Often it has to do with what we spend our time doing. So let's take a little look at skilled trade careers, as we mentioned at the beginning, and what they are and how they might be relevant to our career planning. So, as the video mentioned, working with your hands can be extremely rewarding. It can help you meet with personal success, professional success, financial success, and help you achieve an overall sense of well being, value, and accomplishment. Within our school system, we do a great job at showcasing careers, but we sometimes forget to discuss or highlight the careers that require people to work with their hands. The skilled trades is a category that requires individuals to work with their hands, as do a lot of jobs. Additionally, skilled trades is a career path that requires specialty knowledge. So it's not just working with your hands. There is an acquired knowledge that needs to be built up and training dedicated to in order to perform these jobs. Skilled trades workers, they build and maintain infrastructure, things like our homes, hospitals, schools, roads, farms, and parks. They keep industries running and perform many services that we rely on every day, like hairstyling, food preparation, and other social services. With our time together, I hope we can dive a little deeper into our understanding of the skilled trades and all the associated benefits. So we're going to talk a little bit about these benefits. What are they? So skilled trade careers, according to the Canadian and Ontario government, are in high demand right now and they have great earning potential. So, if you did a little research on Statistics Canada, you would see that people in these careers tend to be employed and tend to be earning a very livable wage. Often, careers, especially in 2024, careers in the skilled trades are using cutting edge technology. So, if you like technology or have an aptitude towards technology, this is one of those career fields that you might want to consider. Being paid while you learn on the job, what does that mean? That means that people that are exploring or training in the skilled trades are called apprentices, and apprentices learn while they're on the job, earning a paycheck. So this is different than other post-secondary pathways. Also, the skilled trades have so many opportunities for advancement. So you can move on to owning your own company, becoming an instructor or a teacher, and so on. And there are so many transferable skills in the skilled trades. Often, people in the skilled trades, whether they're apprentices or have completed and are full journey people, those people often talk about how the skills they use in one job or one trade often help them be really great at another trade. What are some of the pathways that you can take to get to these skilled trade jobs? Well, you can do it through apprenticeship, which I briefly just mentioned. Apprenticeship is a way of learning and training, similar to college and university. The way you learn differs a little bit. So you learn on the job from a mentor or sponsor who's a certified journey person. That means they've completed their apprenticeship, and you earn a paycheck while you learn. So that's the first way you can get to a skilled trade job, through apprenticeship. The second way is by completing a college program. By completing a college program, in this case, you have to pay the college to attend, but you do learn the skills that you're going to need to enter the world of work. So those are the two ways that you can get to a skilled trades job. Before we go into a little bit more of our definitions and understanding, we're wondering if we can give you another little mini challenge. I'm going to ask that we take about a minute. This is an individual activity, so each student at their desk or wherever they're seated, if you could consider each one of these pictures or images on the screen, take a look at what's happening in the picture. I'd like you to consider if you could see yourself performing these jobs or tasks as something that you do on a daily basis. Maybe analyze what's happening and if you could see yourself there. Once you take a look at all the images, maybe focus in on one or two and consider whether you could see yourself there. So Miss Sandra is going to put a minute on the timer for us, and I'll join you back in 1 minute.
And I'm not going to put the timer on the board because that will cover our picture, but just letting you know that the timer is starting in 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Timer has begun. Thirty seconds. And 10 seconds left.
So hopefully you had a moment to reflect on one or two particular pictures or images that spoke to you. I'm wondering if you figured out that all these images relate to a skilled trades job. So I'm going to list them for you. You may have already known what some of them are, but we're going to go through them together. So the images on your screen, starting with the top row, represent either a brick and stone mason or a construction craft worker. So it's one of those careers that are in the construction related field. In the top middle, we have an image that shows an adult working with some young people. So this is actually an image of a child and youth worker in a classroom setting. Over in that top row, all the way on the other side, it looks like someone is diagnosing something digitally. So that is an image of an auto service technician diagnosing what might be the concern with a vehicle. And in the bottom row, we have an image of a welder, someone that is welding metal components together. In the middle, we have an image of someone, it looks like sort of like they're setting a table. That's actually an event planner and is also part of the skilled trades under the service sector. And then last but not least, over on the other side of your screen, we have someone in what looks like food preparation. So in this case, it's a cook, but it could have been a baker as well, but it's someone in the service sector again under culinary arts. So very curious to know, I wish I could be there with you, which one of these spoke to you, and teachers, feel free to unpack this a little later as well if you'd like. We're going to go back to our list now, our alphabetical list of careers, and we are going to go back with the little bit of information that you've been given so far about skilled trades and apprenticeship. We're asking if you could go back to that career list and put a star, doesn't have to be a fancy one, but put a star beside any of the careers that you listed that require people to work with their hands. Remember that we watched that video about all the things your hands can do. If you could please put a star beside any career that you can think of that you works with your hands. If you have extra time and want to add a little bit to your list, please feel free. We're going to put 2 minutes on the timer for you and then come back. We have about 30 seconds left. Thank you so much for engaging in that activity. We like to call that our career categories. We can't help but wonder if that was an easy task for your class, or maybe were there some differences of opinion or need to talk things out through the associated jobs versus hands-on skills, and where you place those stars. When we completed this activity centrally, we struggled a little bit as a team on where to place our stars. We had to have a lot of conversation. So, for example, we wrote down doctor under D. And at first, we didn't consider it as a job that you needed your hands or a skilled trades career. But then, after talking through it and a few other careers, we realized that the career of being a doctor does require you to complete a ton of activities with your hands. Things like manipulating an injury, writing down notes, setting up your work area, administering a needle, or maybe working on the computer. So, as we went through the activity, we found that a lot of careers actually require you to use your hands. We also found that completing this activity as a group out loud allowed us for difference of opinion. We got to talk through some of our differences and what we thought our preconceived notions were on a particular career. And so from that, we were able to reflect. Some of our preconceived notions about careers were actually changed by the end of our activity and ultimately led us to conclude, as I said, that many jobs do require you to work with your hands and do require specialty knowledge. So, Teachers, this is an activity that if you'd like to keep it going for the whole week, you could easily continue day after day to add careers to your alphabetical list as you continue to go through exploration, or to park it and have students sort of reflect on their own, and they could work on that on their own if they'd like. We're now going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on skilled trades. We talked about all these jobs that require your hands. So, what makes skilled trades and apprenticeship different than, let's say, other careers? So, it's true that skilled trades are absolutely everywhere and they can be found all around us and they impact our daily lives. As I mentioned, they require the use of your hands and specialty knowledge, and you get that specialty knowledge through training like apprenticeship. Skilled trades falls into actually four different categories, and you can see them up there on your screen. There is the category of construction and maintenance, and there's quite a few careers under there. Under transportation or city motive, the industrial sector, and the service sector. So there are over 144 trades in Ontario that you can pursue careers in through apprenticeship. To be exact, right now there's 144 apprenticeable trades. The next image, students, teachers, I know is really tiny on your screen, and we're not imagining that you can read every single career that is listed. But we wanted to give you a big picture idea of the different careers under each category. Often people tend to think just about construction when they think apprenticeship, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is a fantastic career choice, very lucrative, rewarding, but there's also a lot of other jobs under not only the construction sector, but all four sectors. So you can see if we make our way from left to right with the purple column, sorry, that's motive power or transportation. There's over 20 different careers. Think anything that moves in the water or on the land, you can pursue an apprenticeship pathway and earn your training and credentials to become any one of those careers. Next, you have the service sector. These jobs, there's over 25. These jobs tend to be related to where you're working or doing something that is directly helping an individual or providing them with a service. So if we go through that list, we see hospitality related jobs, social service related jobs, culinary art related jobs, and so on. Next, the blue column is construction. There's over 30 careers in that particular trade, ranging from plumbing to drywall to electrician, and the list goes on and on. So I urge you all to do some exploration when you have some time. And last but not least is the industrial sector. This sector has a strong focus on mechanical processes and equipment. Think much larger scale. I often say there's a little bit of coding or design in that as well as like the other careers as well. And you can find things like a drafts person, elevating device mechanic, mold designer, railway car technician, and so on. A lot of careers you probably have never thought about before. So the reason why we showed this, as I said, is just to get a big picture idea of the 144 different careers that you can pursue through apprenticeship, that the Ontario government offers training through different institutions so that you can get certified as a full journey person in Ontario. The careers that I highlighted just represent a fraction of those 144. So teachers, students, if you have some free time or even build it into a lesson, it would be great to do a little bit more exploration on those different career sectors. Where can you do that research? If you're curious, these are two great websites to start your research on those 144 different careers. You can visit our TCDSB OYAP website. So it's at the bottom there, www.oyaptcdsb.com. There is an oyap.com website as well. That's the provincial general website. But if you'd like some TCDSB specific information, like what courses can I take? What opportunities are there for me in high school in a TCDSB school? You can go to that website and get some information about skilled trades and apprenticeship. If you're looking for information about what am I going to do when I leave high school, how can I get prepared for post-secondary, you want to visit www.skilledtradesontario.ca. That's the Ontario government's website. That's where they do a lot of the regulating, information applications, things like that related to apprenticeship and the skilled trade. So you can visit that website, and it is in our teacher guide that Miss Sandra is going to talk about a little bit later. So these websites are available to teachers to share. If you don't have a chance to copy them down now, you will have access to them when you receive your teacher guide, which might be in your email inbox as we speak. I want to thank everybody. I know that was a lot of information. For some of you might be new information. For some of you may not. Maybe your moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpas, special people in your lives already have careers in these industries. And now you can share that knowledge with your friends and fellow students around you, and maybe have a deeper discussion later on. So thank you so much for being with me. I'm going to hand it over to Miss Sandra, who's going to introduce our special guest. Thanks, guys.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Miss Katerina, for sharing all that wonderful information about the skilled trades. That was very useful. At this point, so for those of you who do not know me, I'm Miss Sandra, and as my colleagues introduced me before, I am the experiential learning resource teacher, and I'm so happy to be with you here today. So thank you both to teachers and students for engaging with us this morning. At this point, I'm going to introduce our very special guest, and our guest today is Miss Nicole Ross. Now, at the bottom of the screen, before I add her to the stage, at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a link. Okay, so that's linked to a form where you are able to insert any questions. So students, if you have any questions, teachers, you can add the questions there, and we will add our special guest. Okay, we will ask these questions to our special guest. So at this point, I'm going to be adding Miss Nicole Ross. So Miss Nicole Ross, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just letting you know that you are muted. Oh, perfect. You just unmuted yourself.
Perfect.
So I'm going to just introduce you briefly. So we have Miss Nicole Ross with us here today, who is a carpenter and a tech teacher. So she's a Red Seal carpenter, and she's also a teacher. And in fact, she teaches at a high school with our board, Neil McNeil. And she also has a designer's license. So Miss Nicole Ross, can you please introduce yourself to how did you become a carpenter?
Yeah, that's not a problem. So I was a student in our board as well. So I went to Senator O'Connor High School. We didn't have a tech program in high school. And so I was only exposed to the trades after leaving university, actually. So I started, as an introduction, my name is Nicole Ross. That has already been said. So I just jumped into question number 2. So I went to university. I studied chemistry and psychology. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to travel or to just kind of explore the world, I guess, essentially. I went camping a lot as a child, but we had a big family. And so we didn't necessarily, I've never been on a plane until I was 21 years old. And so I decided when I graduated, instead of continuing chemistry in grad school, to travel to New Zealand. When I was there, I ran out of money and was offered a job on a construction site. I actually really enjoyed it. It was never a stream that was offered to me. I think a lot of times we don't always sell the idea of construction trades to women. And so it was something that I found accidentally, and I really enjoyed it. So I did 2 years abroad in New Zealand where I worked as a carpenter or an apprentice carpenter. I came back to Canada and I worked 2 years for a non-union home renovation company. And then I joined the Carpenters Union. I finished my Red Seal. I worked as a carpenter for essentially 10 years. Decided to go into teaching because I value very much supporting the trades, but also education. I think the thing I like about the apprenticeship model and with as a journey person is that it's a lifelong learning where you're constantly learning new things. You're constantly learning from other people. It's very much a mentorship type of structure where it isn't like formal education the way it is in a high school where you sit down in your desks and you take your notes and then you do your test and you show that you know your knowledge. You're learning every day just by working with people, learning either directly or indirectly from them, and you continue for the rest of your life as the industry needs kind of change or as you're put on different sites. So I worked for, I was hired to work as a French teacher actually originally at Bishop Allen, and after a year of doing an LTO, the construction program, the position opened up. So I taught construction, at Bishop Allen, and then I moved to Neil McNeil where I taught construction and ran the construction SHISM program. Right now, as you can see in my office, I am the executive director of the College of Carpenters and Allied Trades. So I oversee the largest college of carpenters across the country, actually. And it's
Wow.
the largest training fund in conjunction with the Carpenters Union.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Nicole. And I found it particularly fascinating that you ran out of money while you were traveling.
Yeah.
And this kind of, that kind of led you to a beautiful opportunity.
Yeah. And sometimes, and I think that's the big thing is a lot of times, especially in elementary school, which I believe everyone here is elementary school, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
grade
Okay.
7 and grade 8. Yes.
Okay, perfect. At this point, you're being exposed to all of the different career paths that are potentially offered to you. Life will change your decision making where you might think you want to do something. Sometimes you'll change your decision just based on life situations where a certain program is somewhere far away, and for whatever reason, family, finances, different interests that change, you may not pursue that. And it might be something of interest to you. Sometimes you think a job has certain qualities. As you start exploring it, you realize those don't actually align with your interests. You may be exposed to things that will become your interest and you just don't realize it yet. And so it's about kind of keeping that open mind as you're presented with situations and deciding. And every time there's no wrong decision where I could have easily said, no, I'm not going to pursue carpentry, in which case I would have just gone this way with my life. But I did go into carpentry, and then so my life went this way. And I do not regret any of it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm still enjoying it. But yeah, it's about that open mind to be faced with things that may interest you.
Great. Now, thank you very much, Ms. Nicole, for answering those questions. We have a couple of questions coming in for students.
Okay.
So first questions is, how long did it take for you to become a Red Seal carpenter?
So the apprenticeship is usually approximately 4 years. And the way it works, it's not like high school where you do 1 year and then you graduate to the next year and you graduate to the next year. How it works is based on hours. So if you are working full time, it will take you 4 years. You have 3 blocks of schooling, which will be changing to 4 blocks of schooling in the apprenticeship model, where you are working for 4 years, and for right now, 8 weeks. There are 3 8-week blocks: basic, intermediate, advanced. You leave your job site and you come to school, so the College of Carpenters, and then you would do your apprenticeship. And so you do your level, you go back to work and you work. Once you've received enough hours, then you go back to your next level of apprenticeship, you continue working, you receive your next level, and then you do what's called challenging the exam, because the exam isn't like if you go to university, if you go to college, or even in your high school or elementary school where you do a course with your teacher and then you write a test and your teacher marks it. This one's a ministry exam. So it's delivered to the same, every single apprenticeship every single apprentice receives the same ministry exam, delivered by the ministry, corrected by the ministry.
Thank you. Next question. What are some of the things you build as a carpenter?
A bunch of things. A whole bunch. So remember, as a carpenter, a lot of times you're working for somebody else in a project. So I've built things for myself just for fun. But in terms of on site, I have built, anything from custom mahogany bookcases that kind of fit into a room and fit around it. I have done renovations. I've renovated houses all the way through from bottom to top in terms of like excavating, foundation, framing, any kind of, installing windows, doors, installing kitchen cabinetry, redoing a bathroom. Something of note for those of you in Scarborough, if you go to the Civic Center, the library that's just outside of it, the kind of timber frame library, I was on that site, so I helped build that. Yeah, they're just there's so many different kind of ranges of things. If we went around Toronto, I could point to a bunch of buildings, I'm sure.
That'll be for next year. Maybe we'll do a field
There
trip.
you go.
How long does it take for you to build something like a bookshelf?
Honestly, it depends on the complexity. And so if you wanted to do something very basic, you could probably do it. And it also depends on what material you're using. So if you go to Home Depot and you buy a bunch of shelves, which are already cut to, let's say, 2 feet in depth, you're just cutting across the sizes. In theory, you can just screw it together, in which case it could take you, let's say, an hour or two, or if you have something kind of pre-made from IKEA. If you're designing it, the design process always takes a little bit longer. If you're cutting it all and kind of measuring it out yourself, it obviously takes longer. If you're applying the finishes, it takes even longer. And it depends on what kind of wood joinery you're using, whether you're just kind of attaching something together like this, or whether you're kind of notching it out and measuring so it all equates. So I know that's a very non-answer to your question, but let's say anywhere from an hour to, it could even take you 40 hours, depending on how intricate you want it to be.
Thank you. My dad is also a carpenter, so You're making me think of my dad when you're talking about the bookcases and whatnot. So thank you for that. Okay. Next question from a student. What is the best thing you like about your job? So what's something that you love about being a carpenter or
So
about being a tech ed teacher as well too?
I'll talk about all of it where, again, kind of back to the idea of there's no wrong decision for your career paths, where sometimes there will be certain things you really like about certain jobs and certain things you don't. And that's par for the course. It's just
Right.
how life is. You can have the
Yes.
best job in the world and you can work with the most miserable people, in which case it'll be less fun, or you can have the most miserable job with really fun people and it would be, an amazing job. And so sometimes one thing I like about it is the social aspect. You're always working with people, but then when you're focusing on a job, there is a little bit of a kind of quiet in your head time. And I like that. The things I like about it, I like feeling like I have something to show for the end of the day. Like it's nice kind of at the end of the day to be like, I built that. Another thing I like about it is I like working with my hands. One thing that was never discussed to me, I don't know if it's being discussed in the elementary schools or not, was the idea that you are wired a certain way and to match your career to that. So right now we look at it very much like if your marks are here, you should go into these career fields. If your marks are here, you should go this way, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, I always did very well in school, but I don't like sitting still very much. And I get very restless very easily. And so that part was never actually discussed in school settings. And I was always a good student. So people never even would have pointed that out to me. It's more of an intrinsic realization that I enjoyed moving around all day. I enjoyed doing stuff all day. Again, the people that I've worked with on sites have become my closest friends, even compared to my friends teaching. And I think part of it has to do with the, for lack of a better word, like the misery side of it. Like when you're working at minus 35, your teacher friends don't understand what that feels like to be outside all day at minus 35. Whereas those of you who've worked together, even though it's miserable at the time, you have those stories, you have those bonding moments, you have that shared experience that really does kind of bond you together. In terms of education, I really like working with people. I really like sharing what I've learned, and I really like learning from people. So as much as, you guys are students, if I was teaching your class right now, there's so much you guys could teach me where I wouldn't have thought of, let's say, a way you approach a problem or a certain creativity with it, or I may have thought, oh, this is very easy, but that's where you maybe struggled. And I realized, oh, I have to teach to kind of get you guys to listen. And it's kind of a challenge, but an exciting one to see how to get the most of everybody in front of me and how to promote them into a desired outcome of success.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Another couple of questions from students. What are some of the tools you use as a carpenter? And I imagine this would vary on the project, but what are some of the everyday tools you would use?
Yeah, there's a lot. So if you have, like when you're working on site, you always have your hand tools in your tool pouch. So you'd have your pouch, you'd have things like your tape measure, your pencil, different kinds of squares depending on what you're doing. And when they say square, it's because it'll measure a 90 degree, quite often also a 45 degree. You're going to have things like your knives. I know people say X-Acto knives, utility knives, both for sharpening your pencil, but also for, depending on what you're doing, cutting different things. You'll have different types of hand saws depending on the situation. You obviously have your hammer. Something people don't think about is especially if you're doing finish work, you have something called a nail punch, where it looks like a pencil without the end of it, like just metal, and you use it if you don't want the hammer to hit the end of the nail and like dent your wood. I'm trying to think. You just have a bunch of different kind of hand tools. Chisels are another good one that are quite often used. In terms of power tools, again, depending if you're doing framing or if you're doing more finish work, you would have, let's say, your skill saw, your miter saw, table saw, you'd have a router. Quite often in the high schools, you have a bunch of tools that you wouldn't have on site unless you're doing special kind of mill work. So you're actually making a lot of the trim itself. So you wouldn't necessarily have like your jointer, thickness plane, or your bandsaw, your drill press. But those could happen if you're working in a warehouse to then make custom items to then install on site.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We'll just have a couple more questions for you.
No worries.
So what opportunities has this given you?
So, and here's the thing, it's funny because whenever I taught, like when I was teaching at Neil McNeil, I'd have students who want to be carpenters, and I would ask them, once you have your red seal, what can you do with this? And I think this is kind of advice that is important no matter what field you go into, because you never know where life is going to take you. Once you have your red seal, if your only answer to me is you can work as a carpenter, then you have not done your research. And so you can be a carpenter. That is 100% true. And you can continue your entire life working as a carpenter. Let's say though, you moved somewhere and for whatever reason, they weren't hiring carpenters, but they needed teachers or whatever. You just like knowing what you can do with your certification can help you grow. So one thing, you can work as a carpenter. Through that kind of stream, you can then be like, you can work as a foreman, you can be a site super, you can work your way through companies. Depending on the size of the company, you can go quite high up. Like if you have somewhere like PCL or Ellis Don, if you're ever walking downtown Toronto, I'm sure you'll see those signs everywhere. So you can do that side. You can go into the business side, whether it's like estimating or in sales or kind of that side of it. If you're in a union, you can become a business rep and you can work as an organizer. You can oversee locals. You can kind of grow on that side. You can work on the curriculum side and development. You can work as an instructor for a college. You can work as a teacher in the high school. You can then go into, let's say, designer's license, get your certification that way. You can get your gold seal and work in management. If you wanted to, you could also, in a leadership role, go into politics and start doing curriculum design. So the woman who's the head of Skills Trades Ontario right now, she was a former carpenter as well. So avenues do exist. You just have to be aware they exist so that when they're presented to you, you know that you can apply for it instead of thinking, well, I couldn't possibly. Know that you are always able to. Sometimes you just have to add a few steps to what you're doing, but opportunities do exist.
Thank you. Do you have any advice for students who are interested in a career in the skilled trades?
Yeah, I would say, especially because you guys are grade 7, 8, now's the time to start kind of playing around and exploring, where start being aware of the things you like to do. So in high school, if you have a chance to go into a tech program, so whether you take it as an elective or you take many courses, I would start exploring those because it's a very easy, free, cheap way to kind of see if this is something you like. In our school board, we also have our OYAP program. So if you want to start your apprenticeship, you can actually start doing your OYAP schooling in school while also, doing your apprenticeship in your last year of high school. You can also do things like, the skills competitions to explore it and see if you like it on a more competitive scale. You can start exploring career pathways, sometimes even in terms of, let's say, stereotypes that exist where people assume, like, if you go to university, you'll be paid this much. If you don't, you'll be paid this much. Actually look at it. It's online. You can Google it. You can look, like for carpentry, for instance, you can look at the Carpenters Union website. If you want to be an electrician, you can look at IBW's website. You can look at any of the trade union websites. It will tell you how much all of these people make. You can then look up, you can look up the teaching pay scale. You can look up what a doctor makes. You can look up all these things to see if it actually is real advice or if it's not quite real advice. You can also look up things and see, hey, if I like working with my hands and I'm sitting and I decided to go into business, there's nothing wrong with going to business. Let's say you go into high school and you're doing business courses, and you go into college or university, you do business courses, and you're like, I don't like this. There are ways you can explore. You don't have to start your apprenticeship in OYAP. You don't have to start right after you graduate. You don't have to start it until, the average age for a first year apprentice is 27 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, and we're trying to fix that, and we're fixing that through kind of opportunities that exist. But even little things like to become a tech teacher right now, every single all of you guys will need to take a tech course when you're in high school. If you like it, you don't have to become a carpenter. You can get your red seal and become a tech teacher. So just kind of get your hands dirty and be aware that opportunities exist, and you can always be successful no matter what avenue you pick. You just have to do something that you enjoy and that you're driven to be better at.
Wonderful. Thank you. I know another option for students as well too. So as I mentioned, my dad's a carpenter, and he actually has a co-op student right now. So not every school will necessarily have OYAP or SHISM or or a lot of tech courses, but do keep in mind that every high school will have co-op available to you. So if there is something else that you'd like to explore, take co-op.
Yeah, co-op is a really good one. I forgot that one. I was like, oh yeah. And
No, that's okay.
Co-op is an amazing opportunity to explore that. Yes.
Yeah. I know I've actually met the student who works with my dad and my brother. And he's actually hoping to continue working with them later on, perhaps in the summer or, going forward. So it's a really great opportunity, right? And he actually has a brother as well too. So it's just interesting because it will give them the opportunity to see if they actually even like that trade, right? So it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah.
Miss Nicole, I believe that's all we have for questions. Are there any last remarks you'd like to make before we say our goodbye?
Not really, other than just kind of like work hard. Be like you're more successful if you support each other. So if you are nice to each other, if you work well with each other, if you grow and you learn from each other, that's the way to success. Like working hard is very important, but also kind of think about who you want to be, who you want to work with in group projects, and be that person also. And you'll find that that's, in my opinion, the most important career like advice in general, and then following, just being open-minded and just kind of taking the opportunities as they're given to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us, Miss
My
Nicole
pleasure.
Ross. It was a pleasure having you, and we sincerely appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. All
Thank
right.
you. Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Okay, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our session with Miss Nicole Ross. At this point, we'll be moving on to your challenge. So you all should have received, and if you haven't received it yet, don't worry, it's on its way, your house kits. So your challenge is to now, in groups, to frame a house just like a carpenter. So throughout this process, you're going to be applying math, science, literacy, and learning skills while you're learning by doing. So I'm the experiential learning resource teacher, and something that I like to enforce is the importance of hands-on learning. At this point, we're going to be watching a video that will show you what this process will look like.
No offense, but if you still think stocks, real estate, or crypto are the best passive income investment,
Okay, thank you everyone for watching. I know that was a bit of a longer video, and I know that we obviously had to cut it short just to be respectful of time. Teachers, not to worry, that video is included in the resources that was sent to you. Okay. So that was just to give you a little bit of an overview as to what you students will be doing. So at this point, before we wrap up here today, we're just going to give you a few building day tips and hints. So as you could see from the video, that was a pretty extensive project. So teachers, allow 2 or more days for the build activity. Okay. And of course, this is going to depend on your schedule. Build in time during your day to build parts of it. Okay. So an important few notes to be aware of. Each package, so each shrink wrap package contains 2 house kits. Okay, I know that I had gotten a few emails about this. Each package actually has 2 house kits in it. So it's packaged together as one, but there are 2 inside. Please also note that the pins and jig are to share between the 2 groups. Okay, so 2 packages will come with 1 set of pins and 1 set of jigs to be shared between the 2 groups. Watch the OYAP Build Day live stream, and if you're here, that's already checked off your checklist. Review the OYAP house framing activity. We just previewed that video, but once again, we didn't have the time to view all of it, so you were able to refer back to that in your own time. Students. Students should be divided into groups of 4 to 6, ideally. Okay. One less or one more, it's not a big deal. And organize the appropriate number of kits, glue, craft knives, and pins for each group. Okay, so once again, the jigs and the pins need to be shared between groups. And if, let's say, for whatever reason, one group is missing their jigs or pins, then you can borrow from another group. Okay, you don't typically need those for the entire project. Group the participants, teachers, that's up to you, and divide the tasks. And students, when you're in your groups, make sure that you divide your tasks and steps accordingly. Label the foam board pieces according to the student build handout instructions. Okay, you will find that within your packages. Next steps. So this was the first step, tuning into our live launch day. Okay, whether that's actually today or you're viewing it after, that's totally fine. Teachers, what you need to do now going from here. Review the teacher guiding doc. I will be honest, I know this is a very large document with lots of links. Please don't be overwhelmed. We gave you more on purpose. Okay, we gave you more because we wanted to give you the ability to choose. Okay, so this document contains all the essential resources and additional extensive activities. Just consider integrating 1 to 2 pre-activities and 1 to 2 post activities. So a couple of things to get the conversation started and a couple of things to reflect and apply their learning. Okay, so we're following the experiential learning cycle here. Now, as a class, brainstorm and review the related health and safety procedures for safe use of the tools and participation. So by using these tools and materials, this is something that you really need to take seriously, as some of the materials may cause injuries if we're not using them appropriately. Set up working groups or even consider working stations and materials per your group. Work through the slide deck, which was sent to you, teachers, and student build handout instructions. Stay organized. And finally, document your student learning. We're welcome to, we would love to see the pictures. If you feel free to, you can send them to us via email or post them on your social media if you would like. And this concludes our presentation this morning. So thank you for engaging in this opportunity. At this point, I'll have my colleagues, Miss Katerina and Miss Diana, turn on their cameras just so that they can say goodbye as well. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining us today.